That is a really annoying question.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. Das Wunderbare am Café Julius ist, es gibt es auch als Café Julius to go. Das heißt, wenn die Gäste nicht zu uns kommen können, kommen wir einfach zu den Gästen. Und in diesem Fall zahlt es sich besonders aus. Wir haben das Café Julius eingepackt und sind in die Stahlwelt nach Linz übersiedelt, zur Föß. Da findet nämlich derzeit der CSR-Tag statt von Respect. Und wir dürfen daran teilnehmen und haben da die wunderbare Tinna Nielsen getroffen. Hi Tinna.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting.
Tinna Nielsen is the founder and head of an organization that is called Move the Elephant for Inclusiveness. What's about this organization? Why do you move elephants? I read you are an anthropologist. Why do you move elephants instead of people?
Yeah, so it's not really elephants. It's just a metaphor. So I have been working for creating changes for many years, and my particular focus is inclusiveness, that we really get more out of people's potential and the fact that human beings are different. That diversity we can really use for something good, but it requires that we're inclusive, that we actually use it for something. And I think it's probably fair to say that I've done my share of mistakes. I relied too much on people understanding the importance of this, and we have decades of research proving that this is important and it makes a difference for innovation and for sustainability and for innovating for the future and performance. And I had all the data, and I was talking and I was sharing that, and I got buy-in from people. But what turned out to happen was I got more rational buy-in from the rational mind. But when it really comes to creating behavioral changes, it's a different system in the brain doing that. And so I studied anthropology for 7 years. I also studied psychology, and I worked with human beings for many years. And I thought if I could just get them to understand. And it wasn't before I came across this brain analogy about an elephant and its rider that I really woke up. It was like an eye-opener for me. And it's really just a description of the two different brain systems we have. Is like an elephant and its rider. The system that understands the business case, the rational mind, is like a little rider on top of that elephant. And by understanding it, it can guide us in the right direction. But it can't move a 6-ton heavy elephant if it doesn't feel like moving. And the 6-ton heavy elephant is the system in our brain doing our behavior. And so that was when literally the image made me wake up. So when I finally got that, I started experimenting with how to move that elephant. And there's plenty of research in that, but it wasn't until that moment I was actually able to apply all that knowledge. So I had my own gap, you could say, between my elephant and my rider. So I could close that gap and start enabling others to actually get that elephant moving. So I'm not really moving elephants, and it is not a metaphor for people being slow or heavy or dumb. It is really
Which
just...
elephants aren't. But
elephants are so nice.
It's super smart.
But it is really just a metaphor for appealing to that part of the system doing the behavior. It can be a little heavy because it likes to do what it's always done. So that's the challenge.
And your organization is helping companies to getting more inclusive and more diversity driven.
Yes.
Why do you consider this to be so important, aside for getting more access to potential?
Well, when you look into a workplace and an organization or any community of people, or any group of people, by default, without having intentions of doing so, we have often actually designed it to exclude new knowledge, exclude new ideas, exclude information we don't recognize.
Why is this?
It's a universal human trait. It's really that old, the part of the system in the brain I call the elephant is the oldest part of our brain. And it is driven by instinctives and intuitions and survival mode. And when we
It's because we feel more safe.
It makes us feel safe that we recognize things, and we think that if we recognize information or new knowledge or new ideas, we have an association to that, or then they are good ideas, or that is a competent person because I recognize that person. First of all, that person looks like all the others in the group, so they must be competent because we're obviously all competent. Or that idea reminds me of, so it must be a good idea because that was a good idea last time. But since then, the world has changed, or the context have changed. Maybe even the business strategy has changed. But we kind of tend to keep going in the old patterns because it's familiar to us, and it makes us feel like we're on a good track. So that's why it's important, because if you look at how the world is changing, it has never been changing faster and at a bigger scale than now. And we tend to keep moving in that little bit of a tribal mode and a little bit of homogeneity and familiar patterns, and then we actually just kind of keep reproducing. Yeah. And the problem with this is we're often quite blind to this. So what I do is I go into, it could be a public organization, it could be a private corporation, it could be an NGO. I work a lot in the UN system, it can be OECD. Everybody, we're like organizations where there are people, and we need to get more out of the fact that people...
Are you approaching these organizations, or are they approaching you? I think it's this way.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I'm in such a fortunate situation that it literally just became organic, word by mouth. I have no marketing budget. I'm sure if I had a marketing specialist look at what I do, they would be like in pain. I probably do all the don'ts. I just do. I meet people around the world and I give a lot for free. Yeah. Why do you do that? Because I believe in giving. Yeah.
You have.
It's actually the whole foundation is built on giving and sharing and.
Yeah, it's a for share. Yeah. Company. But what's the business model behind? You have to eat something sometimes, I think.
Yeah, no, it works like this, that if a big organization reaches out to me and said, listen, we would actually like to have these skills inside our organization. We would like our people to have this methodology of how can you make these changes without it being painful. And how can we redesign our system? And they will be like, and we have a budget for this because this is a business development initiative. And they pay. They pay according to what a market price is for having an expert like me come in. But I don't get that money as a consultant. This for sharing change organization, Move the Elephant for Inclusiveness, get the money. So the money stays in the organization, and that generates a surplus because I just get the same automatic paycheck every month. Okay. And so does my partners, the people who work on particular projects. So it's also a partnership organization. If that task requires that expertise, that person is brought in to do that in that collaboration. But the surplus in the organization is then used literally to give a gift to another organization that comes in and say, we have the ambitions, we want to do this, we're working on a good cause, but we don't have budget to hire you in. And then I can say, well, there is equal access for everybody because those who have money, they are literally sharing with you, but I'm facilitating the sharing. And I say, well, we need you to give something back. We need your examples back of what is working and what is not working. And it sounds like I just kind of like got this fancy new business model, but it's really hard work. Yeah. I mean, it's not that easy to get people to share back what worked and didn't work. Because in the not working, that's actually where the interesting learning is. Yes. And then that's not good for our image. Or But I think in general, if you build up the relationship and the trust, people would like to share. But they don't necessarily do it by themselves. I haven't nailed that one yet, how to actually make that just a fluent exchange. Yeah, I need to actually take my own medicine, but that's another conversation.
Do you consider your organization or yourself to being a social entrepreneur? Is this what you are?
Yeah, I think so, and global change maker and a disruptor, and really just somebody who believes that we have to fundamentally change the way that we develop this world so we have inclusive growth and that we don't leave so many people and so many good ideas behind without even noticing it.
Yeah.
We're not even aware of what we're missing out on. I just have a burning passion for this.
So we have every now and then the discussion: is it okay for social entrepreneurships to make a living on doing good things? What's your take on that?
I think we have made a huge mistake on that part, because what happens now? I come from Denmark, and in Denmark everybody has free access to university, so they don't build up such a big big debt during their studies. Yeah. But the majority of countries where you have to pay for your tuition and then for living, and then you end up having such a huge study loan or debt when you come out, that a lot of them decide to go into the private sector where there's a good salary, and then they have mortgages and 2 cars, and the kids have to go to school, and then they're stuck. So I think we've made a huge mistake by creating this myth that it's not okay to do good at the same time as you're doing good. I mean, I really think we have to considerably rethink this, totally, fundamentally change this, that you can make a good salary as you're working for a good cause.
It's totally my
But I'm stuck
opinion.
in this myself. Yeah. I'm totally stuck in this myself. I constantly have to be careful, which is good. It keeps your ethics high, but I said if you had a conversation with my husband, he would be like, could you get just a little higher salary? And it's like, well, what do you need it for? Yeah. You have a house, you have a car. It's like, okay, I don't know. He's like, it's just
a successful life.
It's just all that giving away. But he's working with adolescent young boys, and they're on the verge of society all the time, and he's working with those people who are like the bottom of the pyramid, and so his heart is in the right place. But I think he's onto something right. Like you say, how come it is like this, and why should it be like that? I think if we change this, we would have much more people going directly from college with a lot of ideas and a lot of wonderful passion, and just go straight into doing something socially good and sustainable.
It's the same way I see it. So, Tinna, as we are in Austria, and there are a lot of social entrepreneurs and people want to move into this business of doing, setting up social companies, what would be the best 3 advices you could give them from all you learned? What would you have been happy to have known when you started out?
That is a really annoying question.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking.
You know what? Maybe I haven't even learned that yet. So I've been doing this. So I was working in a big corporation as global head of inclusion and diversity when I set up my nonprofit. And I was running that 2 years before I actually stepped out of my global role and just did it full time. That was a plunge into uncertainty. I think that would be the advice, is if you really believe in something and you can see there is a request for it and a demand for it, just try it out. I've been self-financing this since the beginning, and also the other nonprofit I run, which is really about sharing those specific techniques that we call inclusion nudges: collecting, designing, share.
That's the book you co-wrote.
That's the book we co-author, where we collect, which is not so much a book, it's like a stack of good examples of how can practitioners have done
best practice.
They have written out together with us, what did they do, why did it work, here, go try it out. That's what that initiative is about. We're self-financing that through our own organization, me and my partner, Lisa Kapinski. That would probably be my second advice. Just do it and see if you can find or develop a business model where you keep your passion intact, but where you can generate some money at the same time as you're literally self-financing what you're doing. Because the advice I've been given a lot of time is you have to go find somebody who can sponsor you or financially support your initiative, or else it's not sustainable. And I think they're right, and I think that's where we're moving now. But the other half of the people who've been giving me advice, they have said, oh, no. Don't go for investors. Don't go for social impact investment money. Don't do that, because they're going to take over. And in that, they're going to take over your passion. And then you're going to be left with what? Yeah. Because they will have a say in the decision-making processes. They will take your organization somewhere where it makes sense, but it might not make sense to you. So you have to make that choice. So I don't know if that's a learning, but it's, when you have 50% saying this and 50% saying that, and you have to find your way, maybe that's the advice.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same advice you could give to everybody who wants to start a company, who wants to be an entrepreneur. It's in the end of the day, it's about passion. And
I think because those days where it's really hard, and those months where you're not popular, where people beat you up, and where you're just like dragging yourself around to rebuild some energy and keep it going. The only thing that really keeps me going is that strong belief that this will make a difference. And I'd actually think that the hardest moment I have is when I start doubting. Yeah. When I start doubting, when doubt gets the better of me, and I start doubting if we will ever live in a more inclusive world. And so this is actually also where I always I have this big role model, Margaret Mead. She's a cultural anthropologist, and I had
this one great quote.
The wonderful quote where she says, never doubt that a small committed group of thoughtful citizens can actually change the world, because it's the only thing that ever has. It's something in line with that. I didn't quote her correctly. Sorry, Margaret Mead. But that is the essence of what she's saying. And so I always have a whole book actually at home. It's like really old. It's from the 70s. It's like totally like dirty and crooked, and I bought it used. And there's all these little her view on a lot of different things. So when I start doubting and like go through it, I'm like, there's things in here that's good. Find your way in this and figure out how you can get that energy going. And then sometimes I literally just stop by a coffee bar and I have a cup of coffee and I just sit there and read the newspapers, and I just pull the plug and take a walk in the park, and that means that the next day I'm like 3 days behind in my to-do list, but that's good, because there's so much more energy to actually do it, and that's actually where the creativity comes from.
You're fueled up again, so exactly. You can do the work of 3 days in 1 day.
Maybe that's the third advice. Yeah. Take those pauses. Don't just keep going like a hamster in a wheel, because you're just gonna burn out. So
take pauses, move to Café Julius sometime. And the bad thing with Café Julius is that time flies so fast, and you gotta bounce to the airport. You gotta catch your plane because you're busy. That's actually good news, because you're helping a lot of people when you're busy and you're following your passion.
Yeah, actually it's also because I prioritized, I want to go home to my 3 daughters and my husband, because I could stay here all day and be inspired, and I would love to, but if it's not working on the home front either, and I miss out on all the good stuff happening there.
So safe travels. Thanks for being here. It was very interesting. Und für alle, jetzt können wir wieder Deutsch miteinander reden, für alle, die uns belauscht haben im Café Julius, das hier unten eingeblendet ist die Webadresse von Move the Elephant, und da findet man auch alle Informationen zu diesem Buch, das man besorgen kann und besorgen muss. Das ist ein wunderbares Handbuch, auch für alle, die nicht im Social Entrepreneurship Business sind, denn eigentlich ist ja jeder Entrepreneur social. Ich freue mich auf ein baldiges Wiedersehen im Café Julius to go oder wo auch immer. Danke fürs Dabeisein. Alles Gute.